Edward Mutiba as well as Dede Dejana. So two of the club's women runners, Gerda Steyn as well as Yvette van Zyl, were in the top 5 last year, with Steyn winning a 3rd in a row and a 4th of her career. The club had no male athletes in the top 5. Both are junior from the Nedbank Running Club. Now, the two athletes were the only two local athletes in the top 5 last year, with the first across the line and Mutiba finishing in 5th position. Dejana, who is one of the most accomplished ultramarathon runners of his generation, having also won the Comrades in 2022 and in 2023, says he's not under pressure to perform.
I don't have any pressure, and I've never been with the pressure before. So, and then the president has said it doesn't put us under pressure. So I also agree with him. All we need is support so that we can produce the results.
Now, for the club, the acquisition of the two stars is a long-term investment. The club's chairperson, Greg Gossop, is hoping the pair will also help to groom youngsters.
Yes, we had a fantastic 2025 and the results came. And we're looking forward to, we've built our men's team now, and we hope that they will be part of building the future men's team for the Hollywood Athletics Club. Just like we hope that Gerda and Yvette and the rest of the team will build our ladies team. So it is a long approach. We are hoping for good results in 2026, but we're also looking forward to the future and the development of future champions.
And that's a wrap from the sports desk at the SAWA. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, do remember to send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Give us a call as well on +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective. Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, 23rd of July for hard talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and the whole country affected by gender-based violence. For all your favorite SABC radio stations, call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. 60 years of broadcasting Africa to the world. Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Let's get an African perspective on what's been happening in the world of business, commerce and economics. And at the Business News Desk this morning, Chanduko Ligege. Good morning.
Business News on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Prepaid consumers are set to benefit after the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa amended the rules on mobile data bundle expiry. From the 23rd of January next year, South Africa's telecommunications companies will be required to allow consumers to roll over unused mobile data bundles. ICASA gazetted the new regulations on Friday that provide for at least one rollover on the same terms as the original bundle. ICASA councillor Dikeledi Catherine Mushi has cautioned that bundles for 7 days or less, including uncapped as well as free and promotional bundles, will be excluded.
And for that, we are trying to balance, the market so that the market stays alive while consumers also enjoy the benefits, especially on the 7 days. We were just cautious that, your 5 rand bundles where somebody quickly wants to buy a bundle for the day to do an urgent call. We did not want to discourage investments and networks to now all of a sudden get rid of these bundles.
The Financial Sector Conduct Authority of South Africa, FSCA, has cleared Livestock Wealth for any wrongdoing. This follows allegations that the company was not authorized to render any financial services related business in terms of the financial advisory and intermediary. Livestock Wealth operates as farming asset management company for farm investors. The crowdfunding company welcomed the conclusion of the 2-year-long investigation by FSCA into the matter. Livestock Wealth CEO Ntutuko Shezi elaborates.
We are happy that eventually the cloud that's been hanging over us for 2 years is now lifted, and then that regulatory clarity has been provided by the FSCA. So we're excited at what we are doing now, which is allowing you to own a cow in our farms, be able to visit the farm, and even more excitedly, what we're doing in Limpopo, where you can be a part owner in a citrus farm.
Guinea's bauxite exports have risen to 25% in 2025 to 182.8 million metric tons, cementing its dominance in aluminium ore supply. According to Fitch Solutions BMI research, firm record 74% of shipments went to China as Beijing tightens its grip over Guinea's vast resources. The research company says that the African country overtook Australia as the world's #1 bauxite exporter in 2023, persistently posting double-digit output growth. The Mines Ministry data shows 23 companies shipped bauxite in 2025. In other news, Dubai-based industrial group Mark Cables has developed a 200-megawatt thermal power plant project in Burkina Faso. In a statement, the company says it completed the estimated $213 million project in just 6 months. According to the World Bank data, only around a fifth of Burkina Faso's population has access to electricity, with the country relying on imports from coastal West African states. The company says by providing the 200 megawatts, it offers a concrete solution to the national electricity deficit, adding that it would support the government's efforts to stabilize the grid and reduce dependence on energy imports. A French National Assembly is debating a proposal to ban social media access for children. The government is backing up a private member's bill that, if passed, will prohibit under-15s from accessing sites like Snapchat, Instagram and TikTok. The BBC's Hugh Schofield reports.
After Australia, France is getting serious about restricting access for younger teenagers to social media networks. A private member's bill has been in preparation for some weeks, and now the government has decided, rather than launching its own rival bill, to lend its weight to the text that's before the Assembly. If it passes, there'll be 2 lists of social networks. Those deemed most harmful by the state regulator will be simply forbidden to children under 15. Others, judged less harmful, will still require explicit parental approval.
$1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,420 naira, Botswana 13 pula 45, Kenya 128 shilling 42, Zambia 19 kwacha 52. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 29, Russia 75 rupees 42, India 91 rupees 64, China 71 97, South Africa 16 rand 6 cents. $1 is 73 pence to the British pound and 85 to the euro. Commodities, gold is trading at $5,072, platinum at $2,690 per ounce, the price of Brent crude oil at $65.24 a barrel. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Let's take a look at this story now. South African tourism has concluded its participation in the 2026 Vakantebeers travel show in Utrecht, as well as a 7-day city roadshow across the Netherlands and Belgium, aimed at strengthening market access into Northern Europe. Now, the engagements brought South African tourism products face-to-face with key travel trade partners, reinforcing the country's position as a diverse and experience-rich destination. Our reporter Lebohang Mabange has more.
South African tourism has wrapped up a successful showing in North Europe following its participation at the 2026 Vacante Piers and the completion of the Come Find Your Joy North Europe Roadshow across the Netherlands and Belgium. The multi-city roadshow connected South African tourism businesses, destination management companies and provincial tourism authorities with travel agents, tour operators and online platforms selling South Africa in the region. Explaining the importance of the roadshow in expanding market access, AB Jacobs, South African Tourism's acting hub head for Central Europe and marketing lead for North Europe, says the initiative was designed to bring South African products closer to the travel trade.
The roadshow and the reason why South African tourism prioritized having a roadshow then links South African product and businesses with the travel trade in the market, meaning the travel agents, the tour operators, in some cases even online travel agencies, so that the people who sell the destination in the Netherlands and in Belgium have access to product on the ground. And that's one of the core reasons why we run a roadshow straight after Vakansiebeers. It is for market access for our South African product.
Jacobs says the Netherlands and Belgium have consistently remained strong source markets, with travelers showing high levels of repeat visitation to South Africa. This, she says, allows South African tourism to introduce new experiences and encourage travelers to explore different itineraries across the country.
The Netherlands and Belgium can be categorized as mature travelers in terms of the traveling population propensity to travel long haul for leisure purposes. Because of that maturity, the frequency of coming to South Africa is also quite high. We get an average of a 50% repeater rate from both markets who travel to South Africa and visit us, meaning half of the arrivals we get are people who have been to South Africa before. This is important because it means that as a market who's come to South Africa more than once, they are open to various different offerings and various different itineraries.
She adds that the recently concluded roadshow also ensured broader representation of South Africa's tourism offering, including different provinces and experience categories.
And our job as SA Tourism is to ensure that we create the access to the different offerings that the consumers seek in that market. So running a roadshow and prioritizing different categories of product is actually a business need in addition to an opportunity to create extensive access for South African product. In stating that, we are always trying to showcase all of our different provinces. When we showcase product to our different markets, we are always highlighting experience pillars that we know the consumer from those markets want.
South African Tourism says initiatives such as the recently concluded Vacante Piers and North Europe Roadshow form part of its broader strategy to grow arrivals from Europe, stimulate demand, and build long-term travel confidence in key international markets. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Lebogang Mabange in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Peta are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
So, today is January the 27th, and taking you back to 2002, the Ikeja Armory explosion took place in Nigeria. A massive accidental explosion of high-caliber bombs occurred at a military storage facility in Ikeja in Lagos, and the blast shattered windows miles away and caused widespread panic. Tragically, in the chaos that followed, hundreds of people, mostly children, drowned in the Oke-Afa Canal whilst attempting to flee what they believed was a military coup or an outbreak of war. Over 1,100 people were confirmed dead in one of Nigeria's worst modern tragedies. That was the Ikeja Armory explosion, January the 27th, 2002.
Gender-based violence is destroying lives and tearing communities apart. It happens in homes, in schools, at workplaces, and too often in silence. But it doesn't have to continue. If you see it, Speak out. If you are hurting, reach out. Because doing nothing is not an option. Listen to all 19 SABC radio stations from Wednesday, 23rd of July for hot talk, discussions, advice, dramas, educational shows, and interviews around GBV with experts, survivors, lawmakers, and the whole country affected by gender-based violence. For all your favorite SABC radio stations, call 0800 428 428 to report abuse or get help. GBV, it ends with you. This message is brought to you by the SABC. Get the news, music, and lifestyle of Africa on Channel Africa, the African perspective.
Two former US presidents have issued scathing statements in relation to ongoing immigration enforcement in the United States, with both Barack Obama and Bill Clinton deriding the horrible scenes playing out in Minneapolis and other communities across the country. Their pointed rebukes come in the aftermath of a second US citizen being fatally shot by federal agents during an anti-immigration enforcement operations in Minnesota at the weekend. The continued federal enforcement operations has seen growing divide with the state of Minnesota, which argues that the deployment of thousands of federal agents was a violation of state sovereignty, whilst the federal government defends its actions as being necessary and lawful. Sherwin Bryce Peace has more for us from New York.
The fatal shooting of 37-year-old ICU nurse Alex Pretty has shocked the nation. Just weeks after the fatal shooting of Renee Good, also by a federal agent, and a state apparatus that has asked the federal government to withdraw their agents, whom they argue are making their citizens less safe. Listen to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
If it was the intention of Donald Trump to make an example of Minnesota, then I'm damn proud of the example that the world's seeing. We believe in law and order in this state. We believe in peace, and we believe that Donald Trump needs to pull these 3,000 untrained agents out of Minnesota before they kill another person. And we're up here telling another story of a Minnesotan just trying to live their life without the interference.
Before investigations had properly started into the killings, federal officials sought to frame Pretty as a domestic terrorist who had a concealed weapon and intent on doing harm to federal agents. That narrative is contradicted by the video evidence that shows Pretty filming federal agents during an enforcement operation before a scuffle ensues, leading to his killing. Aaron Reichlen Melnick is with the American Immigration Council.
Legally, ICE agents are allowed to use force, but that has to be a reasonable degree of force. And the same use of force laws apply to ICE officers as they apply to any federal law enforcement officers. For example, deadly force, such as firing a gun, may only be used when it is in response to an imminent threat of deadly force used by someone else. So broadly speaking, ICE officers do have legal authority to use force when conducting arrests, but are still limited by the requirement that that force be reasonable and proportionate.
In a lengthy social media post, President Donald Trump blamed Democratic-run sanctuary cities and states for refusing to cooperate with immigration and customs enforcement operations, accusing them of encouraging left-wing agitators to unlawfully obstruct operations. Views echoed by Greg Bovino, U.S. Border Patrol Commander-at-Large.
When politicians, community leaders, and some journalists engage in that heated rhetoric we keep talking about, when they make the choice to vilify law enforcement, calling law enforcement names like Gestapo, or using the term kidnapping, that is a choice that is made. There are actions and consequences that come from those choices. And then when someone chooses to listen to a politician, a so-called journalist, a community leader that spouted that type of vilification towards law enforcement or anything else, when you choose to listen to that, that is a choice, and there are consequences and actions there also.
With trust between federal and local and state enforcement at an all-time low, amid concerns that federal authorities continued to block state officials from investigating how federal agents killed 2 U.S. citizens under contested circumstances. Keith Ellison is Minnesota's Attorney General.
We've come together and we're here to announce a lawsuit we're filing against the United States Department of Homeland Security to end the unlawful, unprecedented surge of the federal law enforcement agents into Minnesota, because this has to stop. It just has to stop. We ask the courts to end the DHS unlawful behavior in our state, the intimidation, the threats, the violence. We ask the courts to end the tactics on our places of worship, our schools, our courts, our marketplaces, our hospitals, and even funeral homes.
2 federal court hearings Monday will further ventilate whether state law enforcement gains access to the federal investigation into Alex Pretty's killing and whether Operation Metro Surge is a threat to public safety and should be halted. In a statement, former President Obama called the killing of Alex Pretty a heartbreaking tragedy, warning that it was a wake-up call to every American that many of their core values as a nation were increasingly under assault. He said Americans expected federal agents to carry out their duties in a lawful manner that ensured public safety. Amplifying those sentiments, former President Clinton said that what was playing out in Minneapolis was unacceptable and urged everyone who believed in the promise of American democracy to stand up and demonstrate that the nation still belonged to the people. I'm Sherwin Bryce-Pease in New York.
Defense authorities in Nigeria say that they are doing all they can to secure the safe release of over 150 people abducted in the state of Kaduna. Now, the hostages were kidnapped after gunmen attacked 3 churches in Kuminwali, a village in Kajuru, local government area of the state. Tese Makende has more.
Director of Defense Media Operations Major General Michael Onoja, in a statement, says a joint team of security personnel have been carrying out sustained and intelligence-driven operations. The assurance, according to him, follows allegations by critics that security agencies haven't been doing enough since the incident happened. The attack, which occurred last week Sunday, was initially denied by the police, who described it as falsehood by enemies of peace and conflict entrepreneurs. That got members of the community enraged and proceeded to provide a list of names of the victims as proof. Thereafter, the police admitted in a statement that the attack occurred. Kuminwali is just one out of several communities that have suffered attacks and abductions in Kaduna State, as other parts of northwest Nigeria. In 2024, more than 200 children were abducted from their school in Chikun local government area of the state. Kaduna State Governor Uba Sani has visited Kuminwali and assured the locals that his administration, in partnership with security agencies, are stopping at nothing until those who have been abducted are rescued. President Bola Tinubu says his government is recruiting more personnel into the armed forces to ensure better protection of lives and property nationwide. Tassim Akende, SABC News, Jos.
You're listening to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa, on the DSTV Bouquet, Channel 802, OpenView, Channel 628, and on the internet, channelafrica.co.za, as well as on our SABC Plus app. Today, in 1926, Scottish inventor John Logie Baird gave the first public demonstration of a true television system. The first demonstration of a TV.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
And we begin the second hour of Rise and Shine right now. I'm Peter Ndoro, Asanda Beda is away. And we start with this morning's news bulletin brought to you by Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. The Nigerian military says an investigation has found that some amongst 16 officers arrested in October had plotted a coup The statement said those implicated would face military justice and the death penalty if proven guilty. President Bola Tinubu replaced the service chiefs in October in a leadership shakeup aimed at strengthening security as Nigeria confronts multiple armed threats. Analysts say these pressures have made internal discipline a growing military priority. The Southern African Development Community Regional Bloc says it is working around the clock alongside its partners to assist Mozambicans affected by the floods. The SADC Emergency Response Team has arrived in the Southern African country. It consists of experts in safety, logistics, search and rescue, and others. Kailihle Khumalo explains.
The deployment of the SADC Emergency Response Team forms part of the SADC's regional disaster response mechanisms to support Mozambique following the declaration of a red alert and the subsequent appeal for humanitarian assistance. Some of the affected provinces include Gaza, Sofala, and Maputo, where a number of areas remain submerged and inaccessible, with extensive damage to roads, public facilities, and other critical infrastructure. Some fatalities have been recorded as well.
Uganda is easing some post-election restrictions, announcing the lifting of limits on social media access. But the move comes as pressure builds from the United States and the European Union, both raising concern over how the elections were handled and the treatment of opposition figures. Uganda's military chief Muhoozi Kainerugaba has denied claims that soldiers assaulted Barbara Kyagulanyi's wife of opposition leader Bobi Wine during a raid at their home. Wine, who is in hiding, alleged on Saturday that his wife was held at gunpoint by military officers who assaulted her. The KwaZulu-Natal Province Head of Priority Crime Investigations, the Hawks head Lisicha Sinona, is expected to testify before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry in Pretoria, South Africa today. He is accused of having strong ties to alleged criminal kingpin Vusimuzi Ket Matlala. Sinona is expected to answer questions on allegations that he helped Matlala to secure a $22 million SAPS tender. Sibahle Mota reports.
Evidence before the Madlanga Commission has alleged that General Sinona, an attempted murder accused, Vusimuzi Ket Matlala, had a close relationship. This is according to Witness X, who testified remotely through an intermediary at the commission in October last year. WhatsApp messages presented by Witness X revealed a discussion between the pair about a purchase of a property by Matlala for Sinona's son. Witness X also alleged that Matlala sent General Sinona 3 different ID numbers allegedly belonging to President Cyril Ramaphosa in a document titled.
Lastly, Israel has retrieved the remains of the last remaining hostage held in Gaza, fulfilling a key condition of the initial phase of U.S. President Donald Trump's plan to end the Gaza war. The remains of police officer Ren Gvili have been identified and will be returned for burial. The military announced Gvili's remains had been held in Gaza since he was killed during Hamas attacks on October 7, 2023, when the Palestinian militant group led an attack on southern Israeli communities, triggering a 2-year Israeli offensive. Israel has said it would reopen Gaza's Rafah border crossing with Egypt. The enclave remained gateway to the world once the search operation of Gvili's remains were completed. Now, for any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nsinzi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Rulani Mokoena not giving up on the CAF Champions League knockout hopes despite a setback in the DRC, while Pakistan sets a deadline for T20 World Cup boycott decision. I'll tell you more at 7:30.
Wherever the hour finds you, across the world, here's your morning African lens on the world's leading story. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa, the African Perspective.
A very good morning to you indeed, and you are listening to Rise and Shine on Channel Africa. Channelafrica.co.za is where we're streaming. You can also watch us on YouTube at Channel Africa 1 and the internet at www.channelafrica.co.za. You can also catch us on our SABC Plus app. So go into your app store, look for SABC Plus, that's SABC Plus, and look for Channel Africa. And coming up in this hour, we take a look at a couple of stories. An international aid group says that Nigeria, Sudan, and the Democratic Republic of Congo are among the countries facing the world's worst hunger crises. And tensions are mounting in Uganda following a tightly contested presidential elections, with opposition accusing the authorities of arrests, detentions, and even killings.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Darubini ya Afrika na I am Henry Shakif.
Tumeona chapisho mapema hii leo ya kwamba Wizara ya Mambo ya Nje ya nchini Marekani imesema inapitia upya uhusiano wake na nchi ya Tanzania. Pengine taarifa hii imepokelewaje na wananchi wa Tanzania?
Cha kwanza tumeiona taarifa ambayo imetoka hii leo. Sisi kwetu taarifa hii haikutushangaza wala haikutushtua, kwa sababu tulishaona taarifa kama hiyo imetoka kwenye ubalozi wa Marekani nchini Tanzania, ikiwa imetolewa na bwana Tom Pigot.
Umezungumza kwa kina kabisa. Haya ni malalamiko ambayo yamekuwa yakijitokeza mara kwa mara. Unadhani sasa wana hoja ya msingi?
Unauliza maswali mazuri sana na maswali ya tafakari. Maswali ambayo hayawezi kujibiwa kwa dakika moja au kwa siku moja. Ni maswali yanayohitaji tafiti, yanayohitaji kusoma.
Darubini ya Afrika kila Jumatatu hadi Ijumaa kuanzia saa 11 kamili hadi saa 12 kamili jioni majira ya Afrika ya Kati.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Uganda is easing some post-election restrictions, announcing the lifting of limits on social media access. But the move comes as pressure builds from the United States and the European Union, both raising concern over how the elections were handled and the treatment of opposition figures. Michael picks up the story for us.
Uganda's military chief, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, says social media restrictions put in place during the election period have now been lifted. A move officials says signals a return to normal life. But beyond Uganda's borders, criticism is growing. The European Union says it's concerned about human rights abuses, accusing security forces of using excessive force against opposition supporters and limiting political freedoms before and after the vote. In the United States, a Senate panel has condemned the elections and is calling for a review of sanctions against individuals linked to the alleged abuses. Lawmakers point to reports of arbitrary arrests, intimidation, and a heavy military presence during the campaign. Opposition leader Bobi Wine has accused the army of targeting him and his family. Those claims have been denied by the military chief, who says reports that soldiers assaulted Bobi Wine's wife are not true. The Uganda government maintains the elections were peaceful and credible, saying security measures were necessary to keep order. But with Western partners now openly questioning Uganda's democratic record, analysts warn of possible diplomatic and economic pressure ahead. For now, the lifting of social media restrictions offers some relief at home, even as international scrutiny continues. Michael Balike, SABC News, Kampala.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
An infamous illegal gold mining site has been shut in Zambia after military intervention. Situated in Mufumbwe district, which is about 800 kilometers from the capital Lusaka, the gold-rich area has been a source of economic and security concern to the country, as over 50,000 Zambians and foreign nationals had infiltrated the area to carry out illegal activities. Details of the military action are reported by our Zambian correspondent, Davis Sikopo.
The directives from the Commander-in-Chief are very straightforward: to exterminate illegal miners.
Those are the exact words of the Zambia Army Commander, Geoffrey Ziele, that the Defense Forces were given strict instructions by their Commander-in-Chief, President of the Republic of Zambia, Hakainde Hichilema, to exterminate illegal miners that would resist evacuating King Konge and surrounding areas where they are doing illegal mining. Initially, King Konge area in Mufumbwe, northwestern region of the country, has been an innocent, heavy forest until about April in 2025, when it became a center of gold rush in Zambia, with thousands of people flocking there as the precious minerals would be found less than 1 meter digging in the ground. Women, men, and young people in their thousands all camped in the area trying to make a fortune through illegal gold digging with some simple tools as the gold lay almost at the surface of the ground. Government got worried that the country was economically. It sent state police around mid-2025 to displace the illegal miners, and about 30,000 illegal miners were removed, but they returned, and the number is believed to have been way bigger this time. January 2026, Army Commander Geoffrey Ziele informs Copperbelt Minister that criminal gangs, illegal immigrants, and possession of illegal weapons are now the order of the day in King Konge, in Mufumbwe.
Some individuals were seen carrying weapons whose description leads to some certain type of weapons. That is of great concern.
The Zambia Defense Forces, a combination of different military outfits, including the Zambia Army, the Zambia Air Force, and the Zambia National Service, led by the Special Forces or Commandos, were then dispatched last Friday, and by Saturday, 24th January 2025, the military managed to clear up the area of illegal miners. Stakeholders give their accounts on this development. An environmental activist who also runs Care for Nature Zambia, Nsama Musonda Kens, commends the action as it is good for the environment.
Conducting illegal activities comes with a lot of implications, such as social, economic, and environmental challenges. For example, when the environment is degraded, how do you hold them accountable? Where do you find the people who are in charge of these operations?
Clarence Muziamba of the Zambian Empowerment Hub for Entrepreneurship and Skills Training condemns military use and calls for logical ways of dealing with entrepreneurs through formalization of sectors they're engaged in.
The military's role is to protect our territorial borders and maintain order, not to harass citizens with guns. Empowerment, not disempowerment. As an empowerment hub zest, our mandate is to see that Zambians are empowered and not disempowered. We call on the government and the military to work together with us to support our SMEs.
Has the gold rush in Mufumbwe completely come to an end? Well, only time would tell. Reporting for Channel Africa in Lusaka, Zambia, I'm Arthur Davis, Scopo.
Stay with us. Coming up shortly, find out why South Sudan's army has ordered all civilians, United Nations staff and aid workers to leave 3 counties in Jonglei State.
Africa Update on Channel Africa with Lulu Kabu.
Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi has now accused Rwanda of violating the peace deal. Are you surprised at this latest accusation? This is literally days after a signing a ceremony, so to speak.
This is not surprising. I mean, if you ask Paul Kagame, he would also say almost the same thing. One should ask a question. The broker of the peace deal, President Trump, what is it that he wants? Why now? And why is this peace deal being signed in the Americas and not in the Great Lakes? Paul Kagame has never respected Tshisekedi, as often say. Tshisekedi must deal with the problems in his country. He has nothing to do with it. So this peace deal, obviously, when it was signed, one just looked at it and said, this will not last.
Kenny Matiba, former journalist.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Now, South Sudan's army has ordered all civilians, United Nations staff and aid workers to leave 3 counties in Jonglei State, Nurol, Uro and Akobo. This within 48 hours ahead of a major offensive against opposition forces. The United Nations says that the fighting in Jonglei is at a scale not seen in years, and more than 180,000 people have already been displaced as violence threatens to widen. The UN's human rights body has warned that inflammatory rhetoric and rising command failures risk mass atrocities and further unraveling of the fragile peace process. Joining us from Juba to unpack how these orders are affecting civilians and what it means for South Sudan's future is Mr. Edmund Yakani Berzelius, Executive Director of the Community Empowerment Organization, a leading South Sudanese civil society group focused on peace building, governance and human rights. Thank you very, very much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Yeah, thank you for hosting me, and it's an opportunity.
Let's start with the scene on the ground at the moment. The state have been ordered to evacuate, and I wonder what is driving this latest directive from the army.
Thank you very much. If you're aware, South Sudan, after obtaining independence from the rest of Sudan in 2011, we only stayed 2 years. Then we resumed a civil war among ourselves from 2013, resolved in 2015 through an IGAD-mediated peace process. Couldn't work. In 2018, it was revitalized, yet couldn't work because of a deficit between President Salva and his rival, Dr. Riek Machar, who is the leading of the opposition. Now in Jonglei, the situation merged last year in March 2025 when the South Sudan People's Defense Forces army under the command of President Salva clashed with the rebel group of SPLA-IO under Dr. Riek Machar, and the clash is to a level of where one of the South Sudan People's Defense Forces under General Majur was killed. That led to the arrest of Riek, being detained for a while, and now Riek's undergoing trial. And because of trial of Dr. Riek Machar, the deficit in trust and confidence between the army of the government, which is SSPDF, and the rebel army led by Dr. Riek Machar, SPLA-IO, grew very high because some of the members of the IO were also arrested, detained with Riek Machar. Some flee the country, some were dismissed from the government. So the deficit in trust and confidence resumed the current military confrontation between the forces of the government, the forces led by Dr. Riek Machar, as by then as a rebel group, but they're now partner in peace. So the crisis is very bad. The situation is disturbing. The situation is horrible. The situation is described by huge humanitarian crisis, commitment of human rights atrocities. So it's a situation that you can say the country is returning back to full-scale war. Civilian protection and safety is really at high risk and being threatened. And that's why you can see now the spokesperson of South Sudan People Defense Forces issuing that order, which is, yes, a rule in any military engagement, but unfortunately, civilians are at high risk in the face of the military confrontation between the South Sudan People Defense Forces and the forces of SPLA-IO under Dr. Riek Machar, who is the former first vice president, suspended and now undergoing trial in Juba.
So Nurol, Uro and Akobo have been particularly affected. Is there a risk and a danger that this could widen?
Obviously. the countess you pronounce Akobo, Nyirol, Wurol is a triangle of an area which is highly populated. And along the side of that particular environment, there's a really climate shocks, there's a floods in that area, and there's a huge communal violence among the communities associated with cattle theft, armed cattle theft, or what we term as cattle raiding. So there's a high risk that the military confrontation in these three counties will push the countries to fall back into full-scale war and will raise huge humanitarian crisis in those populations. And unfortunately, the army had adopted a new strategy that they don't want to see civilian population running to an assemble point that will make them establish an internal displaced camps. They want the civilians to run in without any establishment like camps. And that is going to be risky because civilians will be facing no any humanitarian assistance. They will be battling with the wildlife in the bushes, things like snakes, mosquitoes, and they will also be facing hunger because they'll be running to areas where there's no food. They have left their livelihood behind. Their livelihood will be destroyed. So we must expect soon a real humanitarian disaster situation in those three areas. And that may lead the military confrontation between the army and the armed opposition scale up, and likely the town of Bor, the seat of Jonglei State, may be also under attack. And as we speak now, there's a huge panic in Bor town, which is a seat of Jonglei State. And historical, whenever Bor is affected, Juba automatically is affected because it's close to Juba. That's why whatever is happening in Akobo, in Nyirol, in Urol is causing a panic in Juba town. And I think South Sudan People Defense Forces are a bit worried about the scale of how the armed opposition are scaling up in capturing towns from government. And they are also having access to weaponry, heavy weaponry, because government soldiers have stayed for almost 1 year without receiving salaries. So what they decided to do is they quit and leave all the heavy artilleries to the hands of the rebels. And that means a big risk to Juba. And remember, South Sudan is at a position where we have an unfolding situation in Sudan. So supply of arms through illegal armed traders from Sudan to South Sudan, where the market is very high. So even the rebels may have access to weaponry more than the government in regular basis because of the flow of weapons from Sudan crisis to South Sudan.
Despite the 48-hour warning, are people able to move safely to safety?
As I've said, that area is also affected with the floods, climate shock. So people found themselves at fixed. Where will you go? The surrounding is full of floods. That is one particular environmental issue. And besides that, you can go to areas where there's no food. Where will you eat? So some population of the civilians have sacrificed their life. They are waiting to whatever will happen besides this ultimatum. And we don't see huge population movement because of this ultimatum, simply because people's livelihood is being affected. And where will they go where there's no livelihood? As I say, there's a floods around, there's a lot of cattle theft among the communities. Where will they go? And this is a population that their livelihood is determined by rearing cattle. So these are killers. Where will they go with their cattle?
We're hearing of warnings about inflammatory rhetoric and a risk of mass atrocities as a result. What kind of language is being used?
One of the assistant chief of staff for South Sudan People Defense Forces, known as General Johnson Olony, he is a warlord, by the way. He's not a professional army. I have to make it very clear. All in my life, in history about him, I know him as a warlord, being aided by then by Sudan. So he is right now commanding the forces of South Sudan People Defense Forces in Jonglei State, specifically targeting these three areas of Akobo, Nyirol, and Urol. He issued this statement, I quote, he said if his forces under his command reach to these three areas, Akobo, Nyirol, or Urol, they should not spare anyone, elderly, children, including chicken. So they should wipe out everything that is a living thing, because he believes that that's the only peace that the government is looking for. That is loaded with hate speech by describing some human beings as a chicken, or by sort of like really trying to put a message that some human beings are not more important, like chicken. That's something that's disturbing. And also saying don't spare anyone, including elderly and children. That means persons with disability, women who are vulnerable, people who are sick, all should be killed. That have raised a huge condemnation among South Sudanese, and that is the seat of genocide. My brother, if you look at histories of genocide across the world, and in Africa, if we take a case study of Rwandan genocide, it starts with hate speech. It starts with hatred sentiments. It starts with hostile propaganda. And now we are involved in that. If you see in the social media, we're involved in tracking social media. The level of hate speech and hostile propaganda among the communities of Jonglei State in terms of ethnic alignment is really very high. And even people are saying we need to deal with him. The language of cockroach is now being used recently in social media and specifically for the last 2 days. And this is a clear indicator why we have genocide in Rwanda. So South Sudan is in a virtue of facing a genocide. Unfortunate situation is that the world and the continent will keep on saying, we don't want to see Rwanda again. My message as an activist is that in South Sudan, in Jonglei State, in the parts of Nirol, Urol, and Akobo, Rwandan case is happening now. When should we stop it?
There's been a civil war, literally, I mean, for decades now. Sadly, for a significant period of time now. Is this the worst that it's been since? I mean, is it... We're talking about escalation. Just how bad has it reached in comparison to the fighting we've seen in the past?
It has reached a level where you find people have been denied food. Starvation has been used as a weapon of war. Besides, human rights atrocities are happening. If you look at the UN OCHA figures, it's really alarming, disturbing. Yes, it may be small area, but if you see the nature of the atrocities, if you see the nature of the human suffering, if you see the nature of humanitarian challenges, it's really, really, really bad. And it's one of the sins that we may not compare with 2013 or 2016 crisis. It's a sin that is challenging. And imagine population is forced to die in the waters of the floods, battling with snakes, with mosquitoes, without any humanitarian assistance. And also it happened in a moment where the global community are seriously engaged in cutting humanitarian assistance. So we don't expect any humanitarian aid to come to those vulnerable population. And also imagine the policy of the government where no IDP camps should be established. What does this mean? This is a complete human rights atrocities. This is a really genocide. This is really a challenge. But will this stop? My answer, this will never stop. And I'd like to take this opportunity, my brother, if you can allow, as I'm speaking to citizens, to audience of South Africa have a very big historical touch with South Sudan. Of lately, the Vice President of South Africa was here, and we are aware that Dr. Riek Machar, who is undergoing trial, was kept in South Africa under detention for almost a period of 2 years when we were revitalizing the agreement. And we have seen also South Africa leading the AU5 countries, that is to help South Sudan to transition from violence to peace. And we are aware there's a historical tie between South Africa and South Sudan. ANC and our ruling party, SPLM, they have a ties. So my appeal to South African audience through your platform is that, yes, South Sudan may look far from South Africa, but humanity connects us. Peace and security is our common interest. I hope your platform can motivate South Africans to advocate for peace and stability in South Sudan through their government. Thank you very much.
What role can civil society organizations like yours, SIPO, play in supporting communities during a crisis like this?
Obviously, we are advocating for their safety. We are advocating for their protection. We are advocating for humanitarian assistance to reach out to them. We are documenting human rights atrocities that have been committed. But also we are involved in facilitating dialogue among the warring parties. As I speak with you now, next week we'll be having an inclusive dialogue among the warring parties with an intention of de-escalating the violence and pushing for declaration of ceasefire, so that at least the civilian population will not face the challenge they're facing. So we are involved, we are advocating, like right now, as I'm speaking to you, we are amplifying the suffering of the people through various media platforms like yours. We'd like to thank you for offering this opportunity. So we are involved in safety, protection, documentation of human rights, atrocities, advocating for humanitarian assistance, and also making sure dialogue is embraced rather than military solution to political crisis. So we are there demanding for accountability, demanding for justice, but also pushing for the parties to prefer dialogue rather than military confrontation.
Edmund, sadly, we've run out of time, but thank you so much indeed for that comprehensive update on the situation in South Sudan. Thanks for your time.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
That was Edmund Yakani Berezilius, who's the Executive Director of the Community Empowerment for Progress organization, a leading South Sudanese civil society group focused on peace building, governance and human rights, talking to us about the desperate situation in South Sudan around Jonglei. It's time for your news headlines. Good morning, Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. The Nigerian military says an investigation has found that some amongst the 16 officers arrested in October had plotted a coup. A statement said those implicated would face military justice and the death penalty if proven guilty. Uganda is easing some post-election restrictions, announcing the lifting of limits on social media access. The move comes as pressure builds from the United States and the European Union, both raising concern over how the elections were handled. And the United Nations says it is now absolutely critical for the Gaza ceasefire deal to be fully implemented. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
And it's time now for some sports news as we say good morning again to Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Peter. A very good morning once again from the sports desk. We'll start with football news. So MC Alger head coach Rolani Mokoena says it's still too early to give up on reaching the knockout phase of the CAF Champions League. This despite his team sitting bottom of the log in Group C. So MC Alger suffered their second loss in 3 matches in the group stages when they went down 1-0 via a 95th minute penalty against Saint Elu Lupopo in Lubumbashi in the Democratic Republic of Congo this past Sunday. The result leaves the Algerian side with just 1 point in 3 matches behind Mamelodi Sundowns of South Africa, Al Hilal's 5 points, they're from Sudan, and Lupopo's 4 points. So of the 3 remaining games, 2 are at home, and from experience, Mokoena says he's not giving up yet.
Well, it's you see, it's very complicated, this group. So we cannot give up yet. There's still there's 3 games to go. We have 2 matches at home, and anything can happen.
Now, Mokoena also admitted that Lupopo fully deserved to win the game, their first victory in the group stages of the CAF Interclub competitions. He also believes they conceded the goal when they had started to look much better in that encounter.
First, congratulations to the opposition. I think over 90 minutes, maybe they were the better team over 90 minutes. Especially in the first half, we didn't have enough, we didn't compete enough. And we arrived late for the duels, we arrived late for the second balls. We made too many mistakes for a Champions League game. But in the second half, I thought we were a little bit better, more stable. All the players doing enough to help the team to be comfortable on the pitch. And it's just a pity that in some of the moments where we had some chances, we were let down by our decision making.
On to some cricket news now. A decision on whether Pakistan will boycott next month's Men's T20 World Cup is said to be made by early next week. Now, Pakistan Cricket Board Chair Mushin Navi says talks with the country's Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif on Monday to discuss their participation in light of Bangladesh's withdrawal. The International Cricket Council replaced Bangladesh with Scotland on Saturday for the tournament, which is being co-hosted by India and Sri Lanka between the 7th of February and the 8th of March. Navi said in a post on X he had a productive meeting with Sharif where he briefed him on the ICC matter. So BBC Sport understands that in addition to a full boycott of the tournament, Pakistan officials are also considering just boycotting their match against India. Pakistan are due to play India at the T20 World Cup in Colombo. Sri Lanka then on the 15th of February in accordance with an agreement signed late last year, saying the two countries will play at neutral venues whenever one of them hosts an ICC event. So political tensions mean the two countries have not faced each other outside men's major tournaments since 2013, while India have not played in Pakistan since 2008. On the tennis court now, relentless top seed Aryna Sabalenka muscled past American teenager Eva Jovic and into the Australian Open semi-finals to accelerate her bid for a third Melbourne title. The Belarusian powered home 6-3 and 6-love in blazing heat to set up a clash with either third seed Coco Gauff or 12th seed Elina Svitolina. It also booked the 27-year-old a 14th career Grand Slam semi-final and fourth in a row at the season opening major. Sabalenka has won twice in Melbourne, that was back in 2023 and in 2024, and seemed destined for yet another crown last year, but was upset by Madison Keys in the final.
Yeah, these teenagers tested me in the last couple of rounds, but incredible player. It was a tough match. Don't look at the score, it wasn't easy at all. She played incredible tennis, pushed me to like one step better level, and I'm super happy with the win. It was a tough battle.
Meanwhile, the Australian Open suffered more disruptions on Tuesday when it hit its maximum heat stress rating with forecast of 45 degrees Celsius, meaning the day's remaining quarterfinals will take place under a closed roof until the weather relents. Now, the Melbourne major reached the highest level of 5 for a second time in 4 days on its scale designed to protect players, fans as well as officials. That means Centre Court, the Rod Laver Arena, which hosts the day's 4 quarterfinals, closed its roof. Now, the opening quarterfinal of the day between Aryna Sabalenka as well as Eva Jovic took place in blazing sunshine. The match, won by the world number 1 Sabalenka, ended in temperatures of 38 degrees Celsius. Play on outdoor courts which were to host the junior boys as well as the girls matches were put on hold. And that's a wrap from the Sports Desk at the Sawa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, do remember to send us an email. That's to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za. Call us as well on +27 11714 4459. I'm back with the final sports update on Africa Rise and Shine. The time has just gone 7:37 a.m. Central African Time. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Well, Sibudi, thank you very much indeed. As she says, she'll be back at the top of the hour with some sports headlines and a full bulletin at the same time in the next hour. Coming up, we'll be taking a look at AWIF, which is a grouping of it's a gathering of female entrepreneurs, women entrepreneurs across the continent, and they'll be looking at some of the challenges that they continue to face even now. AWIF, the conference, has been running for some years now, and we'll be unpacking it with the founder and director shortly.
Es-tu prêt pour quelque chose? Es-tu passionné par les questions qui comptent? As-tu une voix qui mérite d'être entendue? Eh bien, nous avons la plateforme parfaite pour toi. Téléphone-nous ou fais-nous un WhatsApp au +27 66 408 87 42 et nous te rappellerons. Sois dans la conversation.
Salut Channel Africa, ici Beno le diamant rouge et Binal Sport depuis le Cameroun, le pays des lions. Voilà.
Sois dans la conversation. Il ne s'agit pas seulement de parler, mais c'est ta chance d'exprimer ton point de vue, de partager tes opinions et de t'engager avec une communauté qui valorise ton avis. Suivez-nous sur les réseaux sociaux, visitez notre site www.channelafrica.co.za et préparez-vous à partager vos points de vue sur Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
For 60 years, Channel Africa has connected the continent. Celebrate the journey. Celebrate the African perspective.
Right, it's 7:39 Central African Time. It's time now to find out what's been happening in the world of business with Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Tanzania expects to sign before June a deal for its stalled project to construct a $42 billion liquefied natural gas plant, with production set to start in 8 years' time. Equinor and Shell are joint operators of the mega gas project, which would unlock 47.13 trillion cubic feet of natural gas deposits, while ExxonMobil, Pavilion Energy, Medco Energy, and Tanzania's national oil company TPDC are partners. The development was stalled by proposed government changes to a financial agreement reached in 2023. Prepaid consumers are set to benefit after the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa amended the rules on mobile data bundle expiry. From the 23rd of January next year, South Africa's telecommunications companies will be required to allow consumers to roll over unused mobile data bundles. ICASA gazetted the new regulations on Friday that provide for at least one rollover on the same terms as the original bundle. ICASA councillor Dikeledi Catherine Mushi has cautioned that bundles for 7 days or less, including uncapped as well as free and promotional bundles, will be excluded.
And for that, we are trying to balance, the market so that the market stays alive while consumers also enjoy the benefits, especially on the 7 days. We were just cautious that, your 5 rand bundles where somebody quickly wants to buy a bundle for the day to do an urgent call. We did not want to discourage investments and networks to now all of a sudden get rid of these bundles.
Zambia Army Commander Geoffrey Ziele says that the Zambian Defense Forces were given strict instructions by their Commander-in-Chief President of Zambia, Hakainde Hichilema, to exterminate illegal miners that would resist evacuating Kikonge and surrounding areas where they were doing illegal gold mining. An illegal gold mining site situated in Mufumbwe district has been closed down. The gold-rich area has been a source of economic and security concern to the country, as over 50,000 Zambians and foreign nationals had infiltrated the area to carry out illegal activities. Ziele elaborates.
The directives from the Commander-in-Chief are very straightforward: to exterminate illegal miners. Some individuals were seen carrying weapons whose description leads to some certain type of weapons. That is of great concern.
Australia's Sudan's Resources says an arbitration panel has dismissed its challenge to what the mining company calls Congo's unlawful expropriation of subsidiary Congo Iron's mining permit in the country's Sanga region. Sudan says a tribunal in London operating under International Chamber of Commerce rules found Congo had a legitimate basis to revoke the permit because the project was not developed during the period allowed from 2016 to 2018. It dismissed all claims brought by Sudan's and Congo Iron. In other news, a French National Assembly is debating a proposal to ban social media access for children. The government is backing up a private member's bill that, if passed, will prohibit under 15s from accessing sites like Snapchat, Instagram and TikTok. The BBC's Hugh Scofield reports.
After Australia, France is getting serious about restricting access for younger teenagers to social media networks. A private member's bill has been in preparation for some weeks, and now the government has decided, rather than launching its own rival bill, to lend its weight to the text that's before the Assembly. If it passes, there'll be 2 lists of social networks. Those deemed most harmful by the state regulator will be simply forbidden to children under 15. Others, judged less harmful, will still require explicit parental approval.
$1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,420 naira. In Botswana, 13 pula 45. Kenya, the dollar is at 128 shilling 42. Zambia, 19 kwacha 52. $1 in Brazil is trading at 5 real 29. In Russia, 75 rubles 42. India, 91 rupees 64. China, 6 yuan 97. South Africa, 16 rand 6 cents. $1 is trading at 73 pence to the British pound, 85 to the euro. Commodities news. Gold is trading at $5,072, platinum at $2,690 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil, $65.24 a barrel. That is all for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Chanduko, thanks very much indeed. He'll be back in an hour's time for the final business news bulletin for us. In the meantime, countries in southern Africa have started preparing to mitigate against the outbreak of cholera following the recent floods. Malawi is one such country that has begun the rollout of cholera vaccinations. In 2024, the World Health Organization, the WHO, reported that over 800,000 cholera cases and over 5,000 deaths across 33 countries spanning 5 WHO regions, an increase from previous years. Sisi Sakhala has more on the story.
Cholera is an illness caused by ingestion of contaminated food or water. It remains a serious health concern, especially during humanitarian crises involving floods or collapse of infrastructure. Recent floods in the southern part of the continent have caused countries to be on the alert for cholera. Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Africa CDC's Director General, John Garcia, said last week that they are ready to support countries should there be an outbreak.
Flooding means next cholera outbreak. We are ready. From today, we start to activate our Emergency Operations Center and to see how to support our countries. This is also an opportunity for us to say all actions and decisions we made to control cholera in Africa must be implemented now.
Malawi started its vaccination rollout last week to mitigate against a cholera outbreak. The 3-day rollout covered areas like Blantyre. Non-governmental organization working in the health sector in Malawi, the Malawi Health Equity Network, says their major last outbreak was in 2022. However, late last year, they started seeing some cases. Executive Director Jobe Joji says they are calling on the private sector and development partners to come on board before the cases surge.
When we are talking about the fight against cholera, it requires different stakeholders. Like ourselves as civil society organizations, we have local and international NGOs, and the Ministry of Health, of course, is now the owner of the fight. But we also have development partners. This is the time we need more development partners at the moment, because the cases have not reached serious levels, and we need more interventions, we need more awareness raising, which we think requires a lot of resources. And the development partners must come more in numbers now. Chlorine needs to be distributed where people might have challenges to access quality water. Yeah, so we just wanted to call upon different stakeholders, including the private sector and development partners, to come and support the fight.
Communities are also called on to take preventative measures. Joji says the disease is underrated, with many people believing it ended 3 or 4 years ago. He shares the message going out to Malawians.
Key to the messages that the Minister of Health has been putting across to the people have been washing hands with the soap regularly, especially after one has visited a toilet or pit latrine, and before one takes food, washing fruits and vegetables thoroughly with clean water, and ensuring people use water from reliable sources. And if not, they should always apply chlorine to the water they are using. Issues of sanitation around the home to ensure everyone has a good waste management, and also good sanitation along the streets in the cities. Issues of ensuring people prefer to use hot food, and those who are selling food in our streets must also observe hygienic practices. The other point which also came in is the use of the issue of handshake. You know, in Africa, most people, when they meet, they want to greet each other, they would want to shake hands, and after shaking hands, one must sanitize their hands or wash their hands with soap, or just avoid the handshakes.
For Channel Africa, I'm Sisi Sekhalo in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Still to come on Rise and Shine right here on Channel Africa. Across Africa, women entrepreneurs are driving growth, but many still struggle to access things like finance, markets and policy support needed to scale up their businesses. Now, the Africa Women in Innovation Entrepreneurship Forum, AWIF, is taking a bold step, and they're launching a new advisory board for global leaders to strengthen partnerships and expand its impact across the continent. We'll be talking to the founder, Irene Ochem, shortly.
Let's just do it.
Your life just got easier. Get the Channel Africa app and take us wherever you go. Catch the latest news, enjoy your favorite shows, stream the music you love, and stay connected to the continent. All in one spot, right in your pocket. Simple, quick, and always with you. The Channel Africa app. Download it now on iOS and Android. As Africa renews, so does its voices. 60 years of Channel Africa.
Across Africa, women entrepreneurs still face major barriers to accessing finance, markets, networks and policy support to help businesses thrive. The Africa Women Innovation and Entrepreneurship Forum, AWIF, is an award-winning Pan-African organization dedicated to advancing women's economic inclusion and has taken a strategic step to accelerate its impact by establishing a new advisory board of global leaders from business, policy, media, sport and development. Now, this board is expected to help guide OEF's next phase of growth beyond its annual flagship conference, unlocking stronger partnerships, programs and policy engagements across the continent. Well, joining us now is somebody I know very well and have been watching OEF grow over time. So nice to speak to you, Irene Ochem, founder and chief executive officer of OEF.
It's so nice to speak with you too, Peter. Like you said, we've known each other for so long, and you've been a part of the AWIF supporters. So it's so great to Happy New Year to you, and it's so wonderful to be speaking to you this morning.
Happy New Year to you. And look, this conference, particularly, I think a lot of people know very well. But it sounds like you want to do much more and expand. Is this what the basis of this advisory board is?
Well, Peter, we've been doing a lot more than the conference, actually. We have the programmatic pillar of the organization, for which we are known, where we work with entrepreneurs, to provide business services, business development support to help them scale. So there is the conference, but there is also this other pillar where we work with different partners. So now it's a defining moment in that AWIF journey. And by extension, I would say the story of women's economic empowerment on the continent. And that's why we thought we should establish an international advisory board. We are in a growth, a new phase of the AWIF growth. You have more complexity, new challenges, and especially in today's shift in environment, in today's push against gender equality. So we thought to bring together this powerful group of people to support us with strategic advice and guidance.
I mean, my next question is to, I guess, follow on what you're saying, essentially to try and gauge where it can go. But first, maybe the work that you've been doing up to now, what changes have you seen? How has it impacted your ambition?
Well, over the years, we've seen thousands of women entrepreneurs, stepping into their power through our programs, the annual AWIF conference, the awards program, and our community. But we also know that the barriers that they face, access to market, access to finance, to network, and to skills, and also to technology, and also having enabling policy environment. They are deep systemic barriers, and they keep evolving. And that's where we are. A lot has happened in the ecosystem since we started more than 10 years ago, but there is still a lot of very endemic systemic barriers that we need to be addressing. So our work continues. It doesn't stop. We haven't finished with the solutions. We're not done.
How do you look for the right people for this board? You've described the kind of people that you're looking for, and I guess that they should be helping you beyond just advice, maybe even unlocking doors for you.
Absolutely, you've just hit it. Yeah. These are exceptional leaders who understand, they're global leaders who understand both the urgency and the opportunities of this moment that I previously said. We are going to tap into their experience, their networks, and their strategic insight and guidance. They will help us to move, to shift from impact to transformative, what I would call a transformative impact. They will help us to reimagine what is possible. They are all people who have, people who have share a strong commitment, to women's economic empowerment, and there are people who have been allies in one way or the other with our AWIF work and our programming. I will explain more on that. The members of our advisory board, the current members, these are the inaugural members. We are going to increase that number as we go. The first person is on that list is Fatma Samura. Fatma Samura is the former Secretary General of FIFA. She's a global leader in sport, in gender equity and youth empowerment. If you know what Fatma has done in her 7 years of leading FIFA as the first woman in the world to lead FIFA as Secretary General in over 100 and something years of FIFA's existence. What she did there with the women's soccer, FIFA soccer team. Then Dalia Ibra, and also Fatma has been a lifetime, an AWIF lifetime leadership achievement winner in 2023. Then Dalia Ibrahim from Egypt. She is the founder and CEO of one of the biggest publishing companies in the Middle East. She's also the founder and CEO of Ed Ventures, focusing on funding ed tech startups in the Middle East. She's a champion of education, innovation, and Africa's creative economy. Then we have Nicolas Pompim-Monyar, who is a powerful figure in the African Middle East media community. She's the founder and chairman of APO Group. He is a strategist. He has an extensive global network. And in the last, in 2023 and 2024, he was named one of the 100 most influential Africans. Then we have our SEC, who have worked with the UN for over 30 years, comes with experience as not only working with different UN agencies, but also as the former special representative of UN Women to the African Union Commission. And so these are global leaders, people who have led at the global stage, who have been connected, committed to gender equality and women's leadership. So, and we are starting with them, and we'll be increasing that number as we go.
Irene, sadly we've run out of time, but I hope that we have several conversations during the course of this year just to monitor your progress and how the board is going, and also the impact that you continue to have across the continent. Thank you so much. Always good to connect with you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Peter. Always good to talk with you.
That's Irene Ochem, who's the founder and director of the Africa Women Innovation and Entrepreneurship Forum, AWIF, who was talking to us about the new advisory board that she has set up to help build that, build AWIF.
Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Time now for the final hour of Rise and Shine. You're with Peter Ndoro. Asanda Beda is away today. And we begin with the news with Onele Nsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. The Nigerian military says an investigation has found that some amongst 16 officers arrested in October had plotted a coup. The statement said those implicated would face military justice and the death penalty if proven guilty. President Bola Tinubu replaced the service chiefs in October in a leadership shake-up aimed at strengthening security as Nigeria confronts multiple armed threats. Analysts say this pressure have made internal discipline a growing military priority. Uganda is easing some post-election restrictions, announcing the lifting of limits on social media access. But the move comes as pressure builds from the United States and the European Union, both raising concern over how the elections were handled and the treatment of opposition figures. Michael Beleke explains.
Uganda's military chief, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, says social media restrictions put in place during the election period have now been lifted. A move officials says signals a return to normal life. But beyond Uganda's borders, criticism is growing. The European Union says it's concerned about human rights abuses, accusing security forces of using excessive force against opposition supporters and limiting political freedoms before and after the vote. In the United States, a Senate panel has condemned the elections and is calling for a review of sanctions against individuals linked to the alleged abuses.
The KwaZulu-Natal Province Head of Priority Crime Investigations, the Hawks head Lesicha Senona, is expected to testify before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry in Pretoria, South Africa today. He is accused of having a strong tie to alleged criminal kingpin Vusimuzi Matlala. Senona is expected to answer questions on allegations that he assisted Matlala to secure a $22 million SAPS tender. Sibahle Mota reports.
Evidence before the Madlanga Commission has alleged that General Sinona, an attempted murder accused, Vusimuzi Matlala, had a close relationship. This is according to Witness X, who testified remotely through an intermediary at the commission in October last year. WhatsApp messages presented by Witness X revealed a discussion between the pair about a purchase of a property by Matlala for Sinona's son. Witness X also alleged that Matlala sent General Sinona 3 different ID numbers allegedly belonging to President Cyril Ramaphosa in a document titled
The Nkabinde inquiry in South Africa will resume hearings on Thursday. This after the chairperson, retired Justice Bess Nkabinde, granted evidence leaders a request for a postponement. It will allow the inquiry's panel to determine whether there is a conflict of interest in the National Prosecuting Authority's legal team, representing the outgoing National Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Shamila Batohi. She walked out during cross-examination last month. The inquiry is probing suspended South Gauteng Director of Public Prosecutions, Advocate Andrew Chauke's fitness to hold office. Lastly, the United Nations says it is now absolutely critical for the Gaza ceasefire deal to be fully implemented. This after the body of the last Israeli hostage was recovered from the enclave. The Israeli military says it has identified the remains of Ran Veli, a police officer killed during the October 7th attacks. Sergev Kalfoy is a survivor of Hamas captivity and has reacted to the return of Veli's body.
There's a kind of relief. I can now look forward. I couldn't look forward before, as long as I knew there was still someone there, the last one, who was the first to go out and fight. And he was fighting for me eventually. He was fighting to protect me. And he was the last one to stay in Gaza. We could not remain indifferent to that. And now there is a kind of relief.
For any news stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za or call us at +27 11 714 4459. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Tsinsi.
SABC News. The African Perspective.
And coming up in your sports news this hour, Rana Mokoena not giving up on the CAF Champions League knockout stages despite a setback this past weekend, while Pakistan sets a deadline for the T20 World Cup boycott decision. Details of these and other stories coming up at 8:30.
From Africa's broadcast capital to the furthest corners of the globe, this is Rise and Shine, every weekday mornings on Channel Africa.
A very good morning to you. This is the third and final hour of the Tuesday edition of Rise and Shine right here on Channel Africa. ChannelAfrica.co.za is where we're streaming live on the internet, and you can also catch us though on social media, on various platforms, including places like YouTube. Just look for Channel Africa and you probably land on the right page. And also, importantly, on your mobile apps, look for SABC Plus in your app store. That's SABC Plus, and look for Channel Africa. And that way, no matter where you are, you can catch your favorite programs. And don't forget to tune in to Rise and Shine every morning between 6 and 9 a.m. The best way to set up your news day. So what's coming up, particularly in the next half an hour? The World Economic Forum has been taking place in Davos in Switzerland. And of course, the disruptor of disruptors, people like Donald Trump, were there, and lots was discussed. But was there anything there for Africa? Well, we're going to be finding out with a researcher and economist, Dr. Eddie Mahembe. Stay with us for that.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Peta are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
África. Conhece o Ntivani?
Claro que sou eu.
Ntivani é o amante da música de corpo e alma.
Eu amo música africana.
Ele aprecia todos os tipos de melodias e passa os seus dias a ouvir a Channel Africa. Adivinha só, a Channel Africa quer ajudar o Ntivani e os amantes da música em todo o lado a descobrir ainda mais música incrível. Por isso, a Channel Africa está a convocar artistas africanos a submeterem as suas músicas. Músicos, lembrem-se de nos dar todas as informações relevantes no music@channelafrica.co.za. As submissões são a vossa oportunidade de ser ouvidos, mas não garantem inclusão na lista. Todas as submissões serão cuidadosamente analisadas para verificar se cumprem os requisitos da nossa estação. Canal África, a perspectiva africana.
To Cairo, Dakar to Dar es Salaam. Rise and Shine with Peter Ndoro and Asanda Peta on Channel Africa.
Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama says that many African countries are caught in what he calls triple dependency, relying on external powers for security decisions, health and education systems, whilst exporting critical minerals with little value added at home. Speaking in Davos in Switzerland on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum, WEF, Mahama urged African nations to take greater ownership of their development and chart an independent path forward. Channel Africa's economics reporter Innocent Somosa has more.
Ghana's President John Dramani Mahama took a swipe at African leaders during a bold address at the World Economic Forum, criticizing the continent's long-standing habit of exporting raw materials while retaining little of their value.
We depend on donors for our health and educational systems. We supply the world's critical minerals but capture almost none of its value. This isn't sovereignty, it's a trap. The COVID experience was a wake-up call. Africa was the last continent to begin receiving vaccines amid a global pandemic.
Senior international trade consultant Colin Snekwe weighs in on how realistic it is for Africa to negotiate as a single bloc as the global multilateral system continue to weaken.
It is aspirational rather than automatic, but increasingly necessary. As a matter of fact, you could call it an imperative of our time. The weakening of the multilateral system does not mean Africa should retreat into fragmentation. No, it means Africa must redefine how it aggregates power. Negotiating as a single bloc of 54 states on every issue is unrealistic. We've got to get that clear. Negotiating as a coordinated bloc on strategic interests, we're talking of trade, climate finance, debt, and critical minerals, is both realistic and very much overdue. We already have the institutional architecture, the African Union, for instance, and then we're talking of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement and sector-specific frameworks. They are all present.
Can collective bargaining on critical minerals realistically help Africa move from extraction to value creation? Nekwe explains.
Yes, but only if collective bargaining is tied to industrial policy, not just higher royalties. In a fractured world, Africa's power will not come from isolation, but from intelligent coordination, turning resources into leverage and leverage into long-term prosperity. Now, let me pause and take South Africa as an example. Its G20 role makes this question not just theoretical, but urgent. Collective bargaining on critical minerals can absolutely move Africa from extraction to value creation, but only if it is framed as industrial policy, not commodity diplomacy.
Meanwhile, the president of Somaliland has drawn attention after pitching business deals to Eric Trump, the son of President Donald Trump, on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum. I spoke to political analyst Kenneth Mokhatle and began by asking, what does Somaliland stand to gain politically from engaging the Trump family in Davos?
The meeting between the Somaliland officials and the Trump family members is very important, but it is not going to achieve much in terms of political objectives. However, it can achieve a lot in terms of the economic front, because it gives the Somaliland an opportunity to exploit economic investment and trade opportunities from individual business people in America. We must remember that Somaliland has been functioning as a state since 1991. They have got their own economy and they do a lot of responsibilities that any other states have been doing or are doing as accorded to their constitution.
For Channel Africa News, I'm Innocent Samosa in Johannesburg, South Africa.
All right, we're going to continue to unpack this story of the World Economic Forum and what it meant for Africa. So President Mahama basically saying we've got to really shift gear and sort ourselves out in terms of how we engage with the rest of the world. But everything else that went on, things that were spoken at the podiums, what did it mean for Africa and for citizens like you and me? We'll be finding out after this.
Ukatili wa kijinsia unaharibu maisha na kutenga jamii. Hutokea nyumbani, shuleni, kazini na mara nyingi kwa ukimya. lakini hauwezi kuendelea. Ukiona, ongea. Ikiwa unaumia, funguka, kwa sababu kutofanya lolote sio chaguo. Sikiliza vituo vyote 19 vya redio kuanzia Jumatano ya tarehe 23 Julai kwenye mijadala, ushauri, tamthilia, maonyesho ya elimu na mahojiano na wataalamu, manusura, watunga sheria na nchi nzima iliyoathirika na ukatili wa kijinsia kwenye vituo vyako pendwa vya redio. Piga simu 0800 428 ili kuripoti unyanyasaji au kupata msaada. GBV, ikomeshwe na wewe. Ujumbe huu umeletwa kwenu na shirika la SABC.
Africa Update on Channel Africa with Lulu Kabu.
Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi has now accused Rwanda of violating the peace deal. Are you surprised at this latest accusation? This is literally days after a signing a ceremony, so to speak.
This is not surprising. I mean, if you ask Paul Kagame, he would also say almost the same thing. One should ask a question. The broker of the peace deal, President Trump, what is it that he wants? Why now? And why is this peace deal being signed in the Americas and not in the Great Lakes? Paul Kagame has never respected Tshisekedi, as often say. Tshisekedi must deal with the problems in his country. He has nothing to do with it. So this peace deal, obviously, when it was signed, one just looked at it and said, this will not last.
Kenny Matiba, former journalist.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time. Your morning companion with the stories that matter. This is Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
The 56th Annual World Economic Forum has concluded, attended by more than 3,000 leaders from around 130 countries. Now, the meeting came during one of the most complex geopolitical periods in history, and at a time when many appeared to agree that multilateralism, and it's been known for decades, is changing and weakening dramatically. Thoughts about these shifts are usually discussed in private, where spoken out loud on podiums, with one's allies speaking directly against the conduct of each other. South Africa represented the country with the simple message that it was open for business and was working towards fixing its structural impediments. Nompumelelo Siziba filed this report.
It was a war of words at the World Economic Forum this year. Niceties and politeness were set aside to put a line in the sand about the new geo-economic realities of the day, with Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney not mincing his words.
Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Over the past 2 decades, a series of crises in finance, health, energy, and geopolitics have laid bare the risks of extreme global integration. But more recently, great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons. Tariffs as leverage, financial infrastructure as coercion, supply chains as vulnerabilities to be exploited. You cannot live within the lie of mutual benefit through integration when integration becomes the source of your subordination.
President Emmanuel Macron took to the podium, berating the current international order as it's become, highly critical of what he describes as instability and imbalances from a security and defense point of view, as well as an economic perspective.
It's as well a shift towards a world without rules, where international law is trampled underfoot, and where the only law that seems to matter is that of the strongest, and imperial ambitions are resurfacing. Obviously, the Russian war of aggression against Ukraine, which will enter into its 4th year next month, and conflicts continue in the Middle East and across Africa. This is as well a shift towards a world without effective collective governance, and where multilateralism is weakened by powers that obstruct it or turn away from it, and rules are undermined.
While it was clear that the critiques coming from the previously quoted leaders referred much to US President Donald Trump's foreign and economic policies without necessarily naming him. Trump himself directly called out those very leaders when it was his time to speak, referring to Mark Carney as ungrateful and cheekily questioning why it was that President Macron was wearing sunglasses inside the venue. But joking aside, Trump raved about the anticipated growth of the US economy and how foreign direct investment was expected to exceed $18 trillion. He also encouraged other nations to follow his policy path, speaking scathingly about what Europe had become, saying it had gone in the wrong direction.
In recent decades, it became conventional wisdom in Washington and European capitals that the only way to grow a modern Western economy was through ever-increasing government spending, unchecked mass migration, and endless foreign imports. The consensus was that so-called dirty jobs and heavy industry should be sent elsewhere, that affordable energy should be replaced by the Green New Scam, and that countries could be propped up by importing new and entirely different populations from faraway lands. This was the path that sleepy Joe Biden administration and many other Western governments very foolishly followed, turning their backs on everything that makes nations rich and powerful and strong.
The South African delegation, led by National Treasury and International Relations, among other ministries, avoided controversial debates and rather focused on the core of talking to players at the WEF with the possibility of partnerships for economic improvement in the country. Ministers were asked to reflect on the G20 presidency and its key wins. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana was positive about the launch of the G20 Finance Track Africa Engagement Framework, which seeks to unlock Africa's regional potential, and also highlighted other achievements.
The major achievement has been the endorsement of the G20 Ministerial Declaration on Debt Sustainability, which commits to supporting efforts by low and middle-income countries to address debt vulnerabilities, many of which are on the African continent. This declaration is significant because it outlines key actions and commitment to support sustainable debt levels for low and middle-income countries.
Quite aptly, International Relations Minister Ronald Lamola talked about how South Africa used its G20 presidency platform to boost cooperation among nations, a tough ask in a world where some are choosing to look inward and go their own way.
South Africa's presidency of the G20 was marked by its bridge-building role, successfully navigating geopolitical tensions amongst members to secure consensus on key priorities and deliverables, guided by the spirit of inclusivity and cooperation. South Africa ensured that the G20 remained focused on solutions rather than divisions. At the same time, South Africa adopted a pragmatic approach to its presidency, balancing an ambitious developmental agenda.
National Treasury issued a statement at the close of WEF saying that Team South Africa had engaged in successful meetings with global investors, potential investors and business partners. At the same time, it was announced that South Africa would host the Spring Davos World Economic Forum in April next year, a gathering that will have immediate benefits for the tourism and hospitality sectors. Nompumelelo Siziba, SABC News, Johannesburg.
And that report by Nompumelelo Siziba capturing a moment that many are calling a turning point in global politics and economics, where long-standing alliances were tested and the future of global cooperation openly questioned. But beyond the speeches and high-level diplomacy, what does this year's World Economic Forum really mean for Africa, a continent seeking investment, influence and stronger voice in shaping the global system? Well, to unpack the implications for the African economies, global trade, development and Africa's place in a rapidly changing world, we're now joined by development economist and economic researcher Dr. Ed Mahebe. Thanks for joining us, and always good to talk to you.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you to your listeners as well. Good morning.
So from your perspective, what was the single most important message that our continent should be taking away from the World Economic Forum this year?
Yes, what I really, my big takeaway is that Africa decided not to really focus on the noise, but at least a single sort of message. Because when I listen to some of the panels and even the delegation from South Africa and others, I think the most important part was they were presenting Africa as a continent of the future. They were talking about the possibility of AI, possibility of agripreneurs, techpreneurs, and energy, which I think it was very, very important given what was happening in terms of Europe pushing this side, America also, and the issues to do with Venezuela and others. So I think for the first time I saw a synchronization of message from Africa in terms of focusing on what they really want. But obviously, without the support of the bigger global players, these issues might not materialize.
Yes, I mean, it's all very well to go with an agenda and say, this is what we'd like to talk about and this is what we want. But the reality is they were talking about global cooperation weakening. So that's the environment that Africa finds itself. And if multilateralism is under strain, what then does it mean for the continent, especially that we depend so much on a lot of these countries for international trade, global trade, finance, and also these international financial institutions?
Yes, because I think like what the Prime Minister of Canada rightfully said, we have been relying all over the world on rules. And if these rules are being weakened or trampled upon, there is always a possibility that if the rules are not being followed, then instability happens. And even it's from a planning perspective, we are a young continent, and planning is very important to play in a structure. So if those rules are not followed, then it's a big challenge. But I think it's also important to know that even during these upheavals, new alliance can also be made. And I think this could be an opportunity to say, what are the new alliances which can be made going forward? Because there is no one country which can be able to build and insulate itself against every other nation. We need each other. And when we need each other, definitely issues of alliances, issues of partnerships becomes very important. What are the new alliances which can be built out of this chaos, so to speak?
Are we more vulnerable after this WEF, do you think? I mean, should we be worried? Because, you know, industrial policy and trade is being weaponized by people like Donald Trump, for example.
It's a big worry. I think like these devils come in the background of, remember, on the issue of tariffs, which are still being felt, and the economies are being under strain right now. And also it comes also on the background of, I think just we call it lost in the trade, foreign aid. We are also coming in a background where foreign trade was withdrawn, foreign aid was withdrawn. And so definitely many nations in Africa are under strain, especially on those two things, because usually you would say if there is no foreign aid, at least there should be international trade. Now, if both of them are cut, definitely, we are feeling it. But there is always hope when one looks at it to say, right now, as Africa itself, we have actually been underutilizing our current nations in terms of trading amongst ourselves. Yes, it's true at infants, but maybe that could be a very important route to take advantage of the African free trade area and begin to trade amongst ourselves. Because if we continue to rely on America, for example, we continue to rely on these big nations, and then when they are fighting, the grass will always get affected. So yes, it's a very, very terrible time for Africa. It's a very, very, I mean, from an economic point of view, it's a pain to lose chances of doing trade and chances also receiving foreign aid. But we just have to see what we can do in terms of amongst ourselves and also at the friendly nations.
All right, perhaps in just a minute, maybe even less, if African governments and business leaders take one practical step after Davos, what would it be, do you think?
For me, the first is to really unite. Because even without what we have seen now, Europe can still be able to speak with one voice. And that's, for me, that's key. Yes, challenges will come. Yes, they are being tested. But at least they're able to speak with one voice. And that's what we would want to see African doing, to speak with one voice, to speak for 1.4 billion people in Africa, and to talk about a continental GDP of $3.4 trillion, and to be able to speak that we by 2030 to 2050, we have the biggest population because we have a huge youth in terms of the growth of the youth. So for me, that's our currency. That's our what we can see. This is what we have.
Dr. Mahembe, always great talking to you. Thank you so much indeed. And I look forward to many conversations with you during 2026.
Thanks for the opportunity.
That's development economist and economic researcher Dr. Eddie Mahembe talking to us about the World Economic Forum and what it means for Africa. It's 8:30. It's time for your news headlines. Here's Onele Nsinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Thank you, Peter. A group of officers in Nigeria are set to face a military court after being accused of plotting to overthrow the government of President Bola Tinubu last year. 16 officers were arrested last October after what was described as acts of indiscipline and breaches of service regulations. Interpol has announced the results of a major global operation targeting human traffickers and migrant smugglers, leading to over 3,700 arrests. And U.S. Democratic Mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, says he has held a positive conversation with President Donald Trump as they seek for Trump to end the ongoing federal agents' operation against undocumented migrants. Channel Africa News, I'm Onele Nsinzi.
SABC News. Headlines. The African Perspective.
Let's find out what's been happening in the world of sport. Good morning to you, Musibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African Perspective.
Thank you so much, Peter. Good morning once again from the Sports Desk. So former FIFA President Sepp Blatter on Monday suggested he supports fans boycotting World Cup matches in the USA this year due to security concerns. So Blatter gave his support to comments from anti-corruption lawyer Mark Peath, who worked with FIFA on potential reforms when Blatter was the FIFA boss, saying fans should stay away from the USA for the tournament. Now, Peath cited the killing of protester Renee Good by an American immigration agent in Minneapolis earlier on in January as one reason for supporters not to travel to the USA, with Blatter's endorsement of his comments coming in the wake of the death of a second US citizen, Alex Pretty, just last weekend. So the World Cup is due to be hosted by the USA, Canada as well as Mexico. That's from the 11th of June until the 13th of July. Blatter as well as former FIFA chief executive Michael Platini were last year acquitted definitively on charges stemming from a delayed payment of a $2.5 million that the FIFA boss then made to Platini back in 2011 for consultancy services. Now, the former France star Platini said earlier this month that Infantino, who has forged a close relationship with US President Donald Trump, has become more of an autocrat and he likes the rich and powerful. On the continent now, MC Alger head coach Rulani Mokoena says it's still too early to give up on reaching the knockout phase of the CAF Champions League. This despite his team sitting bottom of the log in Group C. So MC Alger suffered their second loss in 3 matches in the group stages when they went down 1-0 via a 95th minute penalty against Saint Elulupopo in Lubumbashi in the Democratic Republic of Congo on Sunday. So that result leaves the Algerian side with just 1 point in 3 matches behind Mamelodi Sundowns, Al Ahly's 5 points as well as Lupopo's 4 points. Of the 3 games remaining, 2 are at home, and from experience, Mokoena says he's not giving up just yet.
Well, you see, it's very complicated, this group. So we cannot give up yet. There's still there's 3 games to go. We have 2 matches at home, and anything can happen.
At the same time, Mokoena also admitted that Lupopo fully deserved the win at this game this past weekend, their first victory in the group stages of the CAF inter-club competitions. He believes they conceded the goal when they had just started to look much better in that second half.
First, congratulations to the opposition. I think over 90 minutes, maybe they were the better team over 90 minutes. Especially in the first half, we didn't have enough, we didn't compete enough. And we arrived late for the duels, we arrived late for the second balls. We made too many mistakes for a Champions League game. But in the second half, I thought we were a little bit better, more stable. All the players doing enough to help the team to be comfortable on the pitch. And it's just a pity that in some of the moments where we had some chances, we were let down by our decision making.
And finally, in tennis news, Germany's Alexander Zverev remained on track for a return to the Australian Open final. This after beating American Lerner Teen 6-3, 6-7, 6-1 and 7-6 in the Melbourne Park quarterfinals on Tuesday. So the big serving third seed, who finished runner-up to Yannick Sinner just last year, will face either Carlos Alcaraz or Alex de Minaur in the last 4 in what will be his 4th semi-final at the event. Zverev secured a break in the 6th game of the opening set when 20-year-old Teen sent a cross-court backhand just beyond the tram lines to give the German the upper hand. There was little between the pair in the second set, with Teen having shaded in the tiebreak, having beaten Zverev with a fine passing shot to set himself up for a set point that he gleefully converted. However, Zverev pulled clear in the third set, eliminating the unforced errors as well as breaking twice to ease ahead. The 4th set went on serve, but Zverev took command in the tie-break and booked his place in the semi-finals of the Australian Open. On a winning note, it's a wrap from the Sports Desk at Osawa. For any sports stories you'd like to share with us, do send us an email. That's to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or give us a call. The newsroom line is +27 11714 4459. For Channel Africa Sport, I am Mosibudi Makura.
Sports on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
8:36 Central Africa time. Today in history, 2013, January the 27th. What happened? Well, French-led forces and Malian government troops entered the ancient city of Timbuktu as part of Operation Serval. Now, this was all about the liberation of Timbuktu. Yeah, the city had been under the control of Islamist militants for nearly a year. While the militants fled before the troops arrived, they burned down a library containing ancient manuscripts, though many were later revealed to have been smuggled out and saved by local librarians. So that is what happened on this day in 2013 in Timbuktu. Coming up, the business news.
Parlez-vous couramment le français? Êtes-vous passionné par la radio? Et êtes-vous qualifié pour travailler en Afrique du Sud? Envoyez-nous votre CV et vos 3 minutes démo en MP3 à @channelafrica.co.za pour avoir une chance de rejoindre la famille Channel Africa. Si vous n'avez pas de réponse après 14 jours, cela signifie que vous n'avez pas été retenu. Channel Africa, la perspective africaine.
Stay tuned to Channel Africa. Stream us on our new and updated website, channelafrica.co.za.
Right, let's catch you up with the business news now as we say good morning again to Chanduko Ligege.
Business news on Channel Africa. The African perspective.
Thank you, Peter. Good morning. Tanzania expects to sign before June a deal for its stalled project to construct a $42 billion liquefied natural gas plant, with production set to start in 8 years' time. Equinor and Shell are joint operators of the mega gas project, which would unlock 47.13 trillion cubic feet of natural gas deposits, while ExxonMobil, Pavilion Energy, Medco Energy and Tanzania's national oil company, TPDC, are partners. The development was stalled by proposed government changes to a financial agreement reached in 2023. Zambia Army Commander Geoffrey Ziele says that the Zambian Defense Forces were given strict instructions by their Commander-in-Chief, President of Zambia Hakainde Hichilema, to exterminate illegal miners that would resist evacuating Kikonge and surrounding areas where they were doing illegal gold mining. An illegal gold mining site situated in Mufumbwe district has been closed down. The gold-rich area has been a source of economic and security concern to the country, as over 50,000 Zambians and foreign nationals had infiltrated the area to carry out illegal activities. Ziele elaborates.
The directives from the Commander-in-Chief are very straightforward: to exterminate illegal miners. Some individuals were seen carrying weapons whose description leads to some certain type of weapons. That is of great concern.
Australia's Sudan's Resources says an arbitration panel has dismissed its challenge to what the mining company calls Congo's unlawful expropriation of subsidiary Congo Iron's mining permit in the country's Sangha region. Sudan says a tribunal in London operating under International Chamber of Commerce rules found Congo had a legitimate basis to revoke the permit because the project was not developed during the period allowed from 2016 to 2018. It dismissed all claims brought by Sudan's and Congo Iron. In other news, prepaid consumers are set to benefit after the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa amended the rules on mobile data bundle expiry. From the 23rd of January next year, South Africa's telecommunications companies will be required to allow consumers to roll over unused mobile data bundles. ICASA gazetted the new regulations on Friday that provide for at least one rollover on the same terms as the original bundle. ICASA councillor Dikeledi Catherine Mushi has cautioned that bundles for 7 days or less, including uncapped as well as free and promotional bundles, will be excluded.
And for that, we are trying to balance, the market so that the market stays alive while consumers also enjoy the benefits, especially on the 7 days. We were just cautious that, your 5 rand bundles where somebody quickly wants to buy a day to do an urgent call. We did not want to discourage investments and networks to now all of a sudden get rid of these bundles.
10 Europe countries, including Britain, France and Germany, have signed a deal to hugely increase offshore wind power in the North Sea, a move in part to free dependency on Russian energy. The collaboration signed in Hamburg will strengthen energy security by offering an escape from what the European government calls the fossil fuel roller coaster. Germany's economy minister Katharina Reisch says the deal would create clean and affordable energy while increasing Europe's strategic sovereignty.
Our goal is to develop the world's largest energy reservoir, and the benefits of this expansion are clear. We are increasing security of supply, strengthening our maritime industry, creating added value, and generating high-quality jobs.
And the financial indicators, $1 in Nigeria is trading at 1,420 naira, Botswana 13 pula 45, Kenya the dollar is 128 shilling 42, Zambia 19 kwacha 52. BRICS countries, $1 in Brazil is at 5 real 29, in Russia 75 rubles 42, India 91 rupee 64, China 6 yuan 97, South Africa 16 rand 6 cents. $1 is 73 pence to the British pound, 85 to the euro. Commodities, gold is at $5,072, platinum at $2,690 per ounce. The price of Brent crude oil at $65.24 a barrel. That is all for me for now. For any business stories you'd like to share with us, please send us an email to newsroom@channelafrica.co.za, or you can call us on +27 11 714 4459. For Channel Africa Business, I am Chanduko Ligege.
Business News on Channel Africa. The African Perspective. Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Peta are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Interpol's global human trafficking crackdown, Operation Liberata 3, has just delivered one of the most extensive law enforcement efforts against organized crime, trafficking and migrant smuggling, coordinated across 119 countries with more than 14,000 officers. The operation resulted in over 3,700 arrests, 720 new investigations, and more than 4,400 potential victims rescued and protected, including a surge in victims being moved into Africa from South America and Asia, not just out of it. So criminals are also using online platforms and deceptive recruitment schemes to trap people seeking jobs or better lives. Joining us now to unpack what all of this means for African communities and global enforcement is security strategist and retired Interpol ambassador Andrew Maishila. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Hey, Jumbo Peter, my brother. We haven't spoken in a long time. Compliments to yourself and to the production team there.
Yes, compliments. Some might say, though, complaints of the season, but we won't go there. So, Interpol's latest figures show thousands of arrests and potential victims protected from recent global operations. In simple terms, how significant are these results, and what do they tell us about human trafficking and migrant smuggling and how it's evolving?
They tell us that there is an increase in crime on different platforms like human trafficking and child trafficking, amongst others, including drugs and cybercrime. But what inspires me to be hopeful is the fact that the countries of the world, the 195 member countries, have joined forces and put up operations that are aimed no longer at preventing crime, but combating it to prevent it, obviously through detection that is informed by the red notices that emanate from member countries because of the crimes that have been reported. Excuse me, Peter, I just came out of a terrible flu for my hoarse voice.
No, you sound great, so we can hear you loud and clear. We're also seeing some interesting patterns developing. Seeing, for example, Asians and Americans being exploited into Africa and not Africans going out in the opposite direction.
This depends upon the market, Peter. The forces of demand and supply are used to the most maximum by organized crime syndicates. Remember, some of these criminals hold doctorates. Some of them are former professors. Some of them are those that have massive interest in the pain of other people. So, long story short, the demands in the market informs the supply. The criminals don't just commit crime indiscriminately and willy-nilly. They plan, Peter, they plot, they look at areas where there is high levels of unemployment and devise those deceptive schemes. They also look at areas where there is drought, where there is famine. They also look at areas where there is a small number or a shortage of males in those communities and vice versa, so that they can then be able to use the demand for gender effectively.
And also, human trafficking has certainly entered the digital age. We're seeing platforms like social media being used to target victims more and more. Perhaps as a final question, with this in mind, what can governments, communities and individuals do better to prevent human trafficking and protect vulnerable migrants before they fall victim?
What I do, Peter, is zero trust. And that's the advice that I gave you. Zero trust should not only be applied digitally. What you see on the digital plane as an advert or as Peter's face and voice telling you to invest 4,000 and being able to make 21,000 every week should be taken with a pinch of salt. Zero trust, you don't trust until you speak to Peter. Zero trust if there's an advert that says there is schooling opportunities in Russia, as it also came my way, my child's way. You have to verify with the Department of International Relations and Cooperation. Simply put, Peter, people, before you take action to commit to making the reality of the objective in an advert or the offer that has been made, you need to verify. If there's an opportunity of employment, you need to check with organizations in South Africa like EPSO, the Associated Professional Staffing Organization. Yeah, they will check for you if really the company that's said to be advertising and looking for people to work in their organization. The South African Staffing Association will be in a position to speak to the North American Staffing organization as well as the Russian Staffing Organization. Confirm, but operate on zero trust. Never trust anything.
Ambassador Andy Mashaile, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much indeed for such important insights on this critical subject. Thank you for your time.
Wonderful talking to you after a long time, my brother. And thank you and Channel Africa for the good work that you do by creating platform for awareness. It's one way of crime prevention and crime combating through awareness.
Thank you so much indeed. That was security strategist and retired Interpol ambassador Andy Mashaile, helping us unpack the global fight against human traffickers and what it means for people across the continent. Yep. Coming up,
Africa Update on Channel Africa with Lulu Kabu.
Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi has now accused Rwanda of violating the peace deal. Are you surprised at this latest accusation? This is literally days after signing a ceremony, so to speak.
This is not surprising. I mean, if you ask Paul Kagame, he would also say almost the same thing. One should ask a question. The broker of the peace deal, President Trump, what is it that he wants? Why now? And why is this peace deal being signed in the Americas and not in the Great Lakes? Paul Kagame has never respected Tshisekedi, as often say. Tshisekedi must deal with the problems in his country. He has nothing to do with it. So this peace deal, obviously, when it was signed, one just looked at it and said, this will not last.
Kenny Matiba, former journalist.
Africa Update with Lulu Kabu, 12 to 1 p.m. Central African Time. New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Right, it's time to find out what's coming up on the move after the 9 o'clock news. And to tell us is Palisa, who's in studio. Hello, LCP.
Hello.
Are you good?
I'm good. How are you, Peter?
Yeah, not too bad. So what's coming up on the program?
All right. In the first hour of today's show, we're speaking about the creator economy. And of course, it's booming all across the world. And because of that, people sort of measure their success by their followers, their likes, and the likes. But when those engagements start to drop, people can take it very personally. Yeah. And it could mean a lot, a make or break moment for an individual. So today we're looking at how we can separate personal value from platform performance, especially if you're someone who's trying to make it on social media.
It's a really difficult one, isn't it? I mean, society has been set up to measure by numbers,
yes,
and not necessarily by the quality. And also, why you're even doing it. If you are quite comfortable just to share to 2 or 3 people, you're probably happier than someone who's chasing the numbers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're also going to be wrapping it up with our Money Matters today. In All Things Money, we speak about how couples can prepare for retirement.
Ah, okay. That's fascinating. In or out of community of property?
You never know. Maybe perhaps both in and out.
All right. So that's on the move coming up after the 9 o'clock news. Stay with us for that.
Wake up, Africa. Peter Ndoro and Asanda Beda are here to help you rise and shine. Weekdays, 6 till 9 a.m. Central African Time. Only on Channel Africa.
Authorities from humanitarian agencies say that search and rescue efforts continue across Mozambique following devastating flooding. More than 640,000 people have been affected, with more than half of those in Gaza province. Authorities say that the regional capital, Xai-Xai, is submerged and there are fears of hunger and disease mounting. Nhlanhla Mahlangu picks up this story.
Local authorities are coordinating with the country's relief agency, the National Disaster Management Institute, to ensure aid reaches those in need. Paula Emerson, head of the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs in Mozambique, says more than 500,000 people have been affected by severe flooding across southern and central Mozambique, particularly in Gaza, Maputo, Sofala provinces, with Gaza province accounting for nearly 2/3 of those affected.
The National Disaster Management Authority, INGD, and partners continue relocating people to safer areas and are conducting search and rescue operations at this point. Currently, there are 51 accommodation centers active nationwide, hosting more than 50,000 people, including around 38,000 in Gaza province. The situation remains fluid and dangerous. Search and rescue continue, but more support, more capacity is needed. Road access is severely impacted, including the risk of flash flooding linked to the rains, but also dam releases in Mozambique and upstream countries. Xai-Xai town, near the Limpopo River, has been inundated, prompting the evacuation from this provincial capital to higher ground. Authorities have also issued alerts for downtown Xai-Xai, including warnings of crocodile risks in flooded areas.
The United Nations Children's Fund says children are especially vulnerable, with access to clean water, food and health care uncertain for those people. Guy Taylor, UNICEF Chief of Communication, says the heavy rains had triggered a rapidly escalating emergency, creating a deadly threat for children.
Flooding that we're seeing is not just destroying homes, schools, health centres and roads. It's really turning unsafe water, disease outbreaks and malnutrition into a deadly threat for children. And the fact that Mozambique is now entering into its annual cyclone season creates the risk of a double crisis, with the most vulnerable children impacted most severely. More than 50,000 people have been forced to flee their homes and are now sheltering across 62 temporary centres, many of those very overcrowded, creating its own risk of disease outbreaks. Access to the most basic services, so talking about clean water, healthcare, nutrition, education, is uncertain or unsafe at best in most impacted areas. And in that kind of condition, these kind of conditions, children really face higher risks of disease, of interrupted learning, and of course of protection risks. And that's particularly the case for girls and for adolescents. Of particular concern are waterborne, always the combination of waterborne diseases and malnutrition, which can often prove lethal. Even before the recent floods here in Mozambique, around 4 out of every 10 children were experiencing chronic malnutrition. And so this renewed disruption to food supplies, to health services, and to care practices threatens to push the most vulnerable children into a dangerous spiral. And that includes the risks, of course, of acute and severe acute malnutrition, which is the deadliest form of malnutrition.
Humanitarian agencies say that the extreme weather has wiped out crops that millions of small-scale farmers rely on to feed themselves, while the waterborne cholera disease is often a threat following the major flooding. Weeks of torrential rains across southern Africa have led to some of the worst flooding the region has seen in years, with parts of Mozambique, Zimbabwe and South Africa all affected. More than 100 people have died across the 3 countries, but authorities say the death toll is likely to rise. Reporting for Channel Africa, I am Nhlanhla Mahlangu in Johannesburg.
And that's how we come to the end of today's edition of Rise and Shine. Join us again tomorrow morning, bright and early, 6 to 9 a.m. But this is where we hand over to the Rise and the On the Move team.
New day, new stories. Start your morning right with Rise and Shine on Channel Africa.
Good morning. It's almost 9 a.m. Central Africa time. Time for On the Move with myself, Palesa Tau, and Benjamin Moshatama. But first, let's get our latest news update.
SABC News. The African Perspective.